In case you somehow missed it, Elden Ring is out, and to paraphrase pretty much everyone on the internet, yeah, it's pretty damn good. I mean, it's good in the same way that a runner would say a marathon was good. You really have to be into that kind of suffering to enjoy it. Like its Dark Souls predecessors, Elden Ring is marked by its unapologetically high difficulty. Its whole brand is suffering. Well, it's that and the crazy boss fights, the deep lore, the setting, the exploration, and the memes, but let's put all those things aside and focus on why people endure such a tough game like this and love it. First off, what makes Elden Ring so tough? It's not like there aren't other challenging games out there. In fact, there are hundreds of roguelike games that exist that can be just as punishing. The difference here, aside from not having to restart every time you die, is that Elden Ring doesn't pull any of its punches. This is the type of game that usually starts you off with a supposed to lose fight just to let you know what you are in for. It's overcoming these challenges, overcoming an extremely hostile world, that's part of the fun. It's hard, but it's not just hard for the sake of being hard. It's punishing, but fair. Sure, you might get tricked by a weird gimmick the first time you see it, or get trashed by an enemy you've never encountered before, but Elden Ring is designed so that every enemy can be overcome. Every enemy has a trick to it or a weakness that can be exploited to shift the odds in your favor. With each new enemy, you're faced with a different challenge. Sure, most of them are just dodge the attack and then smash them, but the game keeps you on your toes because any enemy has the potential to completely take you out if you get sloppy. The bosses, of which there are many, is where the game really shines, and coincidentally, where a lot of people get turned off by this game. They can be absolutely brutal. What makes them especially difficult is that, unlike most games, you can't just brute force your way through most of them. You have to learn and react to their moves and avoid getting greedy, or else you will be banished to the "you died" screen super fast. This whole process can be extremely frustrating, especially when you're just a couple hits away from victory, but when you do finally emerge victorious, you get this rush because it actually feels like you've earned it. It wasn't just an inevitability. This is the game's greatest strength, but sadly, what also keeps it from being enjoyed by so many people. You can't just turn down the difficulty in Elden Ring. You aren't given the option, like most games when you start, to pick between cakewalk or self-loathing. While this is a neat idea, as it ensures everyone is playing the same game, it also means those that don't have a ton of gaming skills are likely to find it straight up impossible to play. This is a shame, but I don't expect the developers to alter their vision just to cater to everybody. This also isn't to say there aren't ways you can't make some things easier on yourself. You can summon companions to help you in most fights, or even other real people, and then blame them for when you fail. You can also level up to get stronger by sticking to areas or enemies that you are comfortable with and avoiding things you aren't ready to handle yet. The open world concept of this game really makes a massive difference to the difficulty. Unlike its predecessors and its many clones that see you running through relatively linear pathways, Elden Ring opens up a world in front of you and says, go for it. Think it would be cool to visit that castle over there? Go for it. Want to check out that big tree? Go for it. Want to fight a dragon barely 10 minutes into the game? Go for it. It doesn't restrict areas through artificial boundaries or by putting up a bunch of locked doors in your way, though it does have some of those. Instead, the only real barrier is your own difficulty threshold. If you find an enemy or an area is too hard, you can simply ignore it and come back later when you are better equipped. This expectation is made very clear from the beginning of the game when you first venture forth from the tutorial level. One of the first enemies you will see is this knight, and if you are anything like me, you'll try to fight him, and then you'll get obliterated. But if you get frustrated with trying to fight him, you can also just walk around him and come back later, or never again and completely forget about him and let him live his life. This is such a fantastic way to curb the difficulty while also providing a wonderful open world experience. It really feels like you can take things on your way. Speaking of your way, there are so many different ways Elden Ring lets you play to your personal preferences. It doesn't force you to learn how to parry attacks or make you use a shield. If you want to dual wield spears and roll around, then all power to you. If you'd rather stay far away and try magic, that's also an option. Providing players the power to pick their preferred playstyle is a perfect practice for parity. Nailed it. It means that when I lose to a boss, I lose partially on my own terms. The game didn't force me to use weapons I didn't want to use, and if I do go ahead and use them, then it's up to me to figure out a way to make them work. Honestly, if there's one thing I had to complain about in this sort of laissez-faire approach to difficulty, it's that one of the hardest parts of the game is trying to follow the plot and figure out where everything is. I mean, the clean interface is nice, and not having a ton of hand-holding is one thing, but come on! I can't be expected to remember the name of every Ronaldinho the Star Fondler type NPC and what random garbage I need to bring them in whatever cave to trigger the next part of the vague story. I can barely remember what I had for breakfast, and it's usually the same thing every day. But looking past that small gripe, Elden Ring is truly a brilliantly crafted piece of entertainment that delivers some of the highest highs you'll ever be able to experience in gaming by really making you work for it. However, if you're able to power through the frustration and adapt your techniques and skills to the game, then you will definitely find glory on the other side. And while it isn't a game for everyone, I wouldn't have it any other way. That's it for me. I gotta get back to dying. Thanks for letting me talk gaming.